Good evening, everybody. Welcome. And you're seeing me without my backboard this evening. It's in front of me. I've got everything all piled up. We've accumulating stuff from. I did not do a haul video on Saturday. I was out of town for my high school reunion. Let's see if you can hear me and see me. Can you hear me? Can you see me? And we'll put that out there, see if I get a couple replies. Hopefully everybody can see and hear me. And then we'll get on moving. All right. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. Okay. So I did not do a haul video this last weekend. As a matter of fact, I didn't even order that much or go shopping. I didn't make any announcements ahead of time. I apologize for that, but I just did not want people to know I was not going to be at the house and the house would not be totally secured. We had our 55th high school reunion in El Paso. That's a 10-hour drive from here. So I'm in East Central Texas, and El Paso is in far West Texas. So I drove across 2/3 of the state, and it took 10 hours each direction. We left here Wednesday and came back late last night, or late yesterday. But it was a great experience. Gosh, 55 years. Of course, we still hold the record, the largest graduating class in El Paso. But we had, 1970. Think about what's going on. There was this little thing going on in Southeast Asia, and so, and my high school, Burgess High School, serviced all of Fort Bliss. So I'm going to say that probably 60 to 66% of all of the students at Burgess High School were children of military in the Air Defense School at Fort Bliss. So we all had a proclivity towards the military. As a matter of fact, the four of us that hung around together, five of us that really hung around together, four of us went onto active duty within 2 years of the time we graduated. And then my best friend, Scott, went on active duty under a buddy program with John, and I'm not going to give his last name. John ended up being the command sergeant major for 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, and he retired out of that. And then his brother Lloyd ended up being the command sergeant major for Delta Force. So, we have a lot of military guys, but because of that, a lot of military guys, we also had a lot of exposure to the things that happened in Vietnam. So we did not have, we have a memorial table at all of our reunions for the people who are not there with us. And so my best friend, Scott Mosier, he passed away right before Christmas. And but he was an air traffic controller. So he ended up retiring out of Dothan Air Force Base. I'm sorry, Dothan, Alabama, which is Fort Rucker, Alabama. Okay, so we are doing Surviving the Coming War, but gosh, what a great weekend. Wow, we had 92 people at the reunion out of 832, so that was pretty good. So Surviving the Coming War, a guide to wartime survival for civilians. I've done a little bit of homework on this. Gosh, he does a good job in presenting this. There's a couple of really difficult topics. Get this book. You need it in your library. I tell you, it's essential reading. Let me go in and say hi to everybody, and then we'll get started in this fantastic book. Scott Hemmer was first, as is the case almost all the time. Thank you, Scott. Really, really appreciate you. Right behind him was Patty's Garden and Little on Prepper. Welcome. Good to see you. Kaylin Strain. Let me see. We should have Sue Me here shortly. I was just chatting with her, Utah Mike. And I know she was doing Bible in a year. We talk about that quite a bit. Let me see anybody else. Oh, by the way, I saw there she is. Hello, Sumi. And thank you to everybody who's over there supporting our friend John Grammer and his wife Tammy on their channel. I noticed that there's more and more comments, and every one of the people who's commenting on his videos are subscribers to this channel. So thank you so much for supporting him, for supporting them. And he's got his new book out. I just ordered it an hour ago. So that should be here hopefully tomorrow with Amazon overnight delivery. So Hopefully we'll have that very soon. And Cats and Prepping, good evening. Welcome. Good to see you. Butch Graves, good evening. Good to see you as well. I don't have my reading glasses on, so if I miss you, please forgive me. But anyhow, into this phenomenal, fantastic book. We're on chapters 22 and 23. I think we have a total of 35. Let me go back here to the index. 30. There are 30 chapters. So we've only got a couple of weeks left. I've got to pick another book. Don't forget that this Thursday, we'll be doing our fiction book club, and it's going to be The Attack by Kurt Schlichter. And so basically, it's really a nonfiction, but he wrote it in a fiction style. And the whole thing is how he, along with Scott, I want to say his last name, Scott Mann, who's a retired lieutenant colonel, Special Forces, and Sarah, what's Sarah's last name? Sarah was the targeter for the Taliban and ISIS-K, and a bunch of other Islamic terrorist groups. And so this is kind of their fictionalized version of how they anticipate the 1,000 cells that are in the United States doing their October 7th version here in the United States. Sarah Adams, thank you, Scott. Thank you. I appreciate you. Theoxorus, good evening. Good to see you. I hope you're having a fantastic dinner. So anyhow, so when I was in El Paso, sorry, we'll get to this shortly. When I was in El Paso, LNG Mexican foods. You cannot beat Mexican border food, okay? It's the closest thing you're going to get to real, authentic Mexican food. Even here in Central Texas, I refer to it as Tex-Mex. It's nothing like what I grew up on. El Paso is 85% Mexican, Hispanic. So that's the food that I'm used to, the border food. Oaxaca cheese and hatch green chilies and everything like that. So I took my wife to my favorite Mexican restaurant. It opened, I think, in 1923. And I took her to it for lunch. I had chili rellenos. Oh my gosh. You just can't match chili rellenos from El Paso. D-Man 50, good evening. Welcome. Good to see you. And then Saturday, she had never been to La Posta and La Masia in Las Cruces. So that's right in the Hatch Valley area. And I had caldillo. Now here they say that caldillo doesn't exist. It's caldo. But there we call it caldillo. And so you take the caldillo, which is basically caldo, but it's just a lot soupier, a lot thicker. And then you take an ice cream scoop and you scoop it out of the pot, get all the liquid out of it, lay it into a tortilla, lay some green chili sauce, some salsa verde on top of it, and you have a caldillo burrito, and oh my God. But anyhow, so I got my fill of great Mexican food while I was home. I left there in 1970. I've been back for 2 high school reunions. I still call it home. Can you believe that? Woe is me. But anyhow, the best Mexican food you'll ever want to find. So then I exposed Helen to it too. She was very happy with it. Wartime Shelters and Retreats, chapter 22. Okay. Home fortifications, how to make your home fortified. So if those of you who are age challenged like I am, who have no intentions of bugging out, who are going to hunker down, this is a critical chapter for you. How do you fortify your home? How do you make it so that it is defensible against any kind of aggression? Now, remember that they want something that's inside your house. So chances that they're going to burn you out or something like that is slim and none. But because they want the contents of your house, they will try other ways to get in, but you've got to find ways to barricade yourself. He has all kinds of ideas, plants to put around your yard, how to use entanglements, how to use barbed wire, how to build firing positions, and how to position yourself within that firing position so that you are less of a target to an aggressor than you would normally be. Position weapons and ammunition for quick access. Position heavy furniture and appliances to protect your firing positions. These windows are, we got to do something for them. So have rose bushes, thorny bushes on the outside to distance the people from the inside. Never have anything open so that your surprise is one of your biggest weapons. They don't know where you are. Okay, so if all the lights out at night, you're inside, they're outside. If you have tripwires, if you have booby traps and everything else, they are not going to get in. They won't approach a window if the windows are closed because they don't know what's behind it. So, there's all kinds of different things you can do to really protect yourself. List of great things. I'm going to say there's probably 20 things you can do in this book that is going to make your house more and more defensible. And it's just great ideas. As a matter of fact, because of this book, I ordered some more door stops, which are, rubber stops because, and I'm trying to get some 3-inch screws. I'm going to replace all the screws that hold the hinges and the doors. I'm going to replace all the screws for the striker plates so that it goes more than just an inch, inch and a half. It's going to be 3-inch screws on all of those. I should get that done hopefully in the next week or two. Then don't forget, you also want to get plenty of masking tape, or not masking tape, but duct tape, so that you can put all kinds of tape across your windows so if they're broken, they don't just cataclysmically fall inside your home. You want to have it so that they're kind of pieced together, and then it becomes more of an obstacle for them to try to get through and cut themselves as they try to get through it. Ideal places to have firing positions inside your home. Then what happens if you have a pre-established retreat? How do you now remember, if you set up a pre-established retreat and you have great defensive positions and everything else, have a back door, have a way that how you can get in around the defensive perimeter in case somebody occupies it and tries to use all the nice things you have to keep you out. Have a way you can get in that they didn't think was a way in so that you can get in and take your position back. That's one of the biggest things about being a bug out person. Even if you have a bug out location, nothing is guaranteed. So there's no guarantee that that bug out location won't be occupied by somebody else when you get there, okay? There's no guarantee you're going to make it through your bug out route to your bug out location. So just remember, in my opinion, the best thing you can do is hunker down where you are. Talks about improvised shelters, and these are all the things you learn in Boy Scouts and bushcrafting and everything else, how to make lean-tos, how to thatch roof, how to use canopies and tarps and ponchos and everything else. And so, how you can build those kinds of protections from weather. So Utah Mike asked the question, what's the spikes for the yards and roads? Those are called caltrops, C-A-L-T-R-O-P-S. I did a video on a short on how to make those. So and you can get some glue or some, let me get my list here. And some super glue type stuff, welding stuff. You can take nails, cut the head off of one nail and sharpen it. And then you have the other nail, you make it a V, you put the other nail, like same thing, like V, put the two together, weld those two together or super glue those two together. And then you have a 4-pointed thing you just throw in the yard. 3 points are down, 1 point is straight up. And if it's a 3-inch nail, then you've got an 1.5 inches of protruding pointy object up, plus about a 1/2 inch more. So it's going to be about 2 inches above the ground. And that becomes very dangerous to step on. You can also use, and I have a whole bunch of them, if you use the fencing staples, get the 1.5 inch fencing staples, then you can open those up and the same thing. That's what I use in the demonstration. And that is my, let me see here. I'm looking through my list of shorts that I have done, and it's the page before. I'm not finding it. But just do a search on my shorts for caltrops, C-A-L-T-R-O-P-S. And then you'll find I showed you how to make those. But that's fantastic. The other thing I have, and I did a video on home defenses. If you go to someplace like Tractor Supply, they have these 4-foot poles, and it's got so you can put the electrified wire through it to keep your cattle in or anything like that. And so it's got the holes, so you can put the electrical wire through it. I have those for basically an alarm system. So I have some fishing line. I also have some nylon line, and that goes through those holes. They're attached to some 12 gauge and 22 gauge, what do you call those? Triple arms, booby traps. I have active shotgun shells and 22s. I have alarm systems, which are just noisemakers, and I also have some CS tear gas, so that when those go off, it'll have tear gas. Then I have a whole bunch of tent pegs I put in the ground with fishing line, and that's going to be just a tanglefoot, nothing on it other than bells and things like that. If you put your bells too low, then a squirrel, a rabbit, a coyote, anything like that that runs across, it's going to set it off. So I don't want to put my expensive stuff, my triple arms, up down low. I want to put them up high, about waist high, and that's where those are going to be. Then you can use rat traps so that when that tripwire is hit, it pulls on it loosens the holder for the rat trap. Rat trap closes, and it closes on a silime light or chylime light, whichever way you want to pronounce it, and that becomes a visual obstruction as well. So there's a lot of things you can do as far as defending your property, and I've done a video on that. How to create a survival camp and what you need, and other people with you. You can't do it alone. Survivalism, preparedness, what we're going to be up against in the near future is not something you can do all by yourself. You need a minimum of 6 to 8 people. Just so you can handle nighttime guard duty. You've got to sleep sometime. So he talks about how to set up a survival camp. And then he makes a couple of recommendations. Move it every couple of weeks so that people don't become overly observant of you and watch your routines and your habits. So you got to move. So you're constantly moving if you're out there in a survival camp. And you're also going to hunt, forage, and everything else. So if you don't move, that's going to deplete the area around you. So you're going to have to go to fresh hunting grounds and fresh foraging grounds. That is one of the disadvantages to being a hunker down person, is by hunkering down here, then the availability of wildlife as well as the availability of foraging is going to greatly diminish over time, because I'm going to have to go out further and further in concentric circles to find food, foraging, food, animal life, and things like that. Now, of course, with birds, that's not a problem. Migratory birds, you've got maybe 8 weeks in the fall, 8 weeks in the winter. I'm sorry, in the spring. So you don't have that much time for migratory birds. But as the human population dies off, then that means more and more of the wildlife will return. So you're going to have a lot more wildlife. I just saw an article today from Texas Parks and Wildlife about the edibility of the feral hogs that we have here in Texas. You don't have to have a license to hunt feral hogs here in Texas. That's how big a problem they are. They want them eradicated. So if you're willing to eat wild pig, then there's all kinds of feral hogs here that you can consider for that purpose. Let me go see if there's anything that I need to check up on before we go into the next chapter. So let me catch up here. Sumi's hooked everything up to her television, so she's seeing me in big screen. So don't pay attention. I would say probably you need to mask about that much down. Let me see here. Oh gosh. And sounds like something that would have fire coming out of my ears. I guess I'm not reading into a conversation as much as I should. Kaylin Strain, yes, your apartment does possess defensive challenges, and it's going to be even worse because your neighbors are going to become potential adversaries. So that's going to be even greater. However, they probably aren't going to burn you out. Okay, they aren't going to do anything to try to burn you out, flood you out, or anything like that, because they would be taking care of themselves at the same time. Holly Ivans says that she's already got 3-inch screws. Yes, blackout plastic is essential. I bought a whole bunch of the blackout drapes at Walmart, so I'm just going to hang those up here. And then, yes, blackout, the 5 mil black plastic. The contractor trash bags work perfect. So yes, get those nails or staples. You get one of those, stapling guns. That would be great for that blackout plastic. You can also use any kind of tape, probably masking tape or um, duct tape would do that very well for you. Holly's not leaving their house as well. That's great. Primers. Thank you, Kaylin. Yes, the primers are the ones that just make the noise. Uh, Holly, you're absolutely right. Your dog will give you away. I don't know what I'm going to do with mine. I've got plans for them not to have to go outside to go potty and all this other kinds of stuff. Yes, they bark an awful lot, but I'm hoping that people suspect that they are in here all by themselves. And so, yes, they probably could give us away. We're not sure. Uh, Sleigh bells on tripwires. Yes, I have cowbells and goat bells. I also got the little bells you have for your fishing rod. So if you have it, if you cast it out and you got a little bell on it, so that when you have a catch, it rings. I've got those. Aren't that loud? I probably won't hear it inside the house, but it will alert somebody outside that I've got provisions, and they don't know whether I can hear it or not. But it will scare them. Uh, Let me see. Oh, what a great idea, little lone prepper, getting the caffeine tablets. Yeah, that would be great. Absolutely great. I was just on prepping for long term on Facebook, and the question was about coffee. And one of the things I have to caution you on about coffee is remember that when you take a look at an instant jar of coffee, or if you take a look at a can of ground coffee or anything like that, when it says it has like 96 cups in it, those are 6-ounce cups. So for me, I have a 12-ounce mug. So when I take a look at that, I automatically divide it by 2, and that tells me how many cups I'm actually going to get out of that container. Then if you use creamer or if you use sugar, make sure you're also planning for how much you have for that. So I've planned 6 cups, six, which is basically 12 6-ounce cups, 72 ounces of coffee a day for each adult, okay, for 4 years with the commensurate amount of, Helen likes cream, I like sugar, so, we've got all that taken care of. Yes, you're right, Kaylin. Some of the fishing bulbs do have lights, and that's another great idea. So, I mentioned and I don't know how to. I've heard it in the military both ways, kyolime and sialine. But if you have those are also great additions. The thing about that is you can hook those up so that you can get an idea visually of where the intrusion is taking place. So, yeah, great ideas, people. Thank you for sharing. Chapter 23, Wartime Ethics. This is a difficult one. I'm going to read the portions of the first chapter because I think it's so critical. He really has nailed this subject. I think he's done an outstanding job. The concept of ethics is distinguishable from morality in that ethics are more practical. Morals are ideas or opinions that are driven by a desire to do good. Ethics are rules that establish allowable actions and correct behavior. So morals are thoughts, ethics are behaviors. Okay? An ethical code may or may not be moral, as it is just an established set of rules. Under normal circumstances, a citizen has pre-established moral principles and ethical standards provided by society and the laws of that society. Under wartime chaos and war zone violence, citizens will be faced with moral dilemmas and ethical conundrums without any guidance. And I disagree a little bit. If you have your own moral code and you have your own ethical code that you're going to subscribe to, then you will have guidance, okay? It's just a question of, as a matter of fact, one of my favorite saints, Saint Maximilian Kolbe. We just celebrated his feast day. I think it was the 2nd of November. Saint Maximilian Kolbe was a Catholic priest who was collected up by the Gestapo and was put into, I think it was Auschwitz. And so that he was there with all these other prisoners in Auschwitz, and somebody attempted a mistake. The commandant's penalty or punishment for somebody trying to escape was to take 10 people and execute them for that one prisoner trying to escape. If that escape was successful, then he would execute more than 10. Now, this was a perverse guy, okay? Because the way he would execute them is he would put them in the middle of a camp in a starvation box, and he would starve them to death so that every day all the rest of the prisoners would hear them moaning, crying, screaming, and basically dying. Well, one of the guys said, please, if I survive this, I have a wife and children, and they need me, and he was selected to be executed. He says, I cannot be executed because I have an obligation to my family. So Maximilian Kolbe said, I'm a priest. I have no family. I have no children. I have no wife. May I replace that person and die in his place? And so the camp commandant says, sure, if you want to die, you can take his place. So Maximilian Kolbe was put into the starvation hut with the other 9. And instead of them screaming, yelling, and moaning and groaning for the duration of the starvation, Maximilian Kolbe had them singing and chanting and praying. So that's the reason he was later beatified, is because his morality and his ethics, so his ethics said, this person has a life of far greater value than mine. I will substitute my life for his. His morality was that he believed in a higher being, and he believed in taking care of other people and giving them a reason and a purpose for whether they were to die or to live. Okay, so that's the morality and ethics, and I think that's a good example of, there are going to be all kinds of heroes. We call them saints, but we can call them all kinds of different things. We can call them martyrs. We can call them all different kinds of names. But there are going to be those people who are going to be guided by their own internal moral codes and ethical behavior. And I think those will be outstanding people to try to emulate as we get into this. Survival ethics is guided by the basic survival imperative that the ethics of survival in wartime and in a war zone is far more complicated than it is in peacetime. Okay, so some of the ethical moral dilemmas that we're going to face: use of force. So you are doing the seemingly wrong thing for a good reason. Are you willing to take the life of another person in order to defend the lives of your loved ones or your group? When I was working as a chaplain for one of the local veteran groups, quite often I was called to deal with somebody whose PTSD was based on the fact that they took somebody else's life. That is, and even in a combat zone, that is something that is traumatic and is going to cause people consternation for the rest of their lives. So a lot of these guys had been back from the combat zones for quite a while, but yet their conscience, their morality was that it was wrong to take another life. And so that caused psychological problems for them for the rest of their lives. That's a decision you may be forced to make. And so, start thinking now, how are you going to justify that? I will tell you that if you read the ancient Hebrew, the commandment, thou shalt not kill, is improperly translated in English. The actual verb is to murder, not to kill. So one of the things that you have to understand is the commandment is thou shalt not murder. So thou shalt not take another life senselessly. Because there are 513 death penalties in the Old Testament. So you can't say you can't kill and at the same time say you're going to die for 513 religious reasons, okay? So that would be an oxymoron in a sense. So killing somebody as an executioner of the state was justified. Killing somebody in combat in wartime was justified. So there's self-defense, defending your family was justified. So there are justifiable reasons for killing. But we have mistranslated that in English, especially in the most common translation of the Bible that there is in the United States. And so that's something I would encourage you to study the ancient Hebrew so that you get a better moral compass around that. Use of deadly force. If using deadly force is the only way to save yourself and others, be mentally prepared for that now. And understand what that's going to cost you. I'm going to skip the next one for a minute about looting and foraging. We're going to talk about taking sides, who's right and who's wrong. That's always going to be a dilemma. That's always going to be a challenge. One of the things in our catechism that is taught is that it's wrong to do something wrong for the greater good. So if telling a lie is wrong, then you cannot tell a lie in order to protect somebody. So the greater good is to protect somebody, but you're still committing a sin by telling a wrong in order to do a greater good, protect somebody. So you can't do something bad in order to accomplish something good. You have to do something good in order to accomplish something good. So if you're asked to tell a lie, don't lie. Just don't respond. Okay. So then another dilemma that's going to come up is to help or not to help. I catch a lot of flack because I intentionally have food set aside for people who come to my door that I think I would like to help. Okay. I have a plan on how I'm going to help those people that I think I'm going to help. It's not going to be to feed them through my door. It's not going to be to allow them onto my property or inside my property. But I do have a plan on how I'm going to help them. But it's also going to appear that I'm really struggling in order to help them so that they don't come back. Okay, now let's go back to looting and foraging. About 3 years ago, one of my favorite guys, Stephen C. Smith, he's the author of the Stonemont series of books. And he had a video on his channel, which is called Integrative Preparedness. And he talked about what he called the 3 S's: scavenge, steal, and scrounge. Okay. And he talked about the moral, ethical, and legal ramifications of each one of those 3. I've expanded that into 5. Okay. So I have 4 S's and a B. Okay. So let's take a look at the worst of those 5 S's, which is to seize. Okay. So when you say, and I've got this all written out for you here. So when you say you're going to seize something, typically what that means is that somebody has it in their possession. You're going to forcibly take it away from that person. It belongs to them. You want it. You're forcing them to give it up to you. That is most often seen as morally wrong. It's most often seen as ethically wrong. It is most often seen as legally wrong. So under all 3 categories, to seize something from somebody else while it is in their possession is considered a wrong. The second S is to steal. So the difference now is that it's not in the possession of the person, but it is their property and under their guardianship. Okay. So while they're not looking, you take it. So you're not actually causing a threat to their physical safety, but you're taking it from their possession without their knowledge. Okay. So that also is morally, ethically, and legally wrong. Now, scrounge and scavenge, the other 2 S's, very, very finite, minute difference between the 2. Okay. To scrounge, technically, is, let me get my definition here. What did I do with my definition? There it is. Scrounging implies taking whatever is available with a sense of improvisation or resourcefulness. It involves finding things that others have discarded or left behind. So it may be something they want, they just couldn't carry it with them and they left it behind them. So they would like to come back and get it, and hopefully it's going to be there when they come back. So in a sense, it's stealing, but at the same time, it's not being guarded by anybody. It's not being watched by anybody. It's not in their possession. So you're taking it from an area that may or may not be an area that they want to return to and get that item for themselves, okay? So when you're scrounging, you're looking for things that people have lower priority in evacuating from that area in order to maintain it for themselves. Now, when you say scavenge, scavenge means those are things that are broken, that maybe they are parts or pieces of something. The area has been abandoned. There's nobody watching over it. Most people probably aren't going to want it. Definitely nobody's going to come back and actively look for it. Now that's scavenging. That is borderline, okay? Because, I mean, that's going to be, I'm sorry, scrounging is going to be borderline, okay? Because you really don't know if somebody's going to want to come back for it or not. If you really feel bad about it, you feel moral and ethical obligation, you need it, you want it, but at the same time, you're not sure if somebody's going to come back and get it, just leave an IOU. Leave a note and say, hey, sorry, I needed this for my family's survival. My name is, if you need it back, come get it from me, okay? And that can solve that ethical or moral dilemma. Whereas scavenging, don't worry about it. If it's there and you want it, just take it, okay? Now, there's another one that's borderline. So those are the 4 S's. Seize, steal, scrounge, and scavenge, okay? Then the 5th one is to borrow, okay? So if I know that somebody has something that I need, then I must leave a note saying, hey, I borrowed this. If you need it back, please let me know. Here's where I am. You can come and get it at any time. Or as soon as I'm done with it, I will return it, which I anticipate being in the next week or 2. So that's how you can address some of the moral and ethical dilemmas around taking things from other people that belong to other people that you may need for your survival, okay? So those are the 4 S's: seize, steal, scrounge, and scavenge. And the 1B, which is to borrow. Okay, now where's my book? Okay, so what does he say? One example of laws versus ethics is the case where an elderly, this is talking about where it really gets confusing. So Mr. Jones is giving us an example. One example where laws versus ethics can be in conflict is a case where elderly were being evacuated from a flood. Guess which one? It starts with a K. It was a hurricane back at the turn of the millennium. The local fire department was prohibited from opening convenience stores across the street to access supplies for the patients, even though the flood victims even though the flood waters would soon destroy the supplies. So you knew those supplies are going to get drowned out. They're going to be, as soon as the water hits them, they're no longer any good. So they were not allowed to break in and take those for the good of somebody else because that was considered stealing legally, okay? Ethically, morally, I would have no compunction whatsoever to go in and get those supplies if I knew they were going to be destroyed or lost in the very near future. I would rather put them to good use than allow them to not be put to good use and somebody else suffer as a result of it and then lose those items permanently, okay? Establishing your code of ethics and how you're going to behave in a post-apocalyptic scenario. Hello, Freedom Firefighter. Good evening. Welcome. Good to see you. And welcome. I haven't seen that name before, so thank you for joining us. Establishing your code of ethics. What's the right thing to do based on your values? So what are your values? What are your priorities? What's the best thing to do for you? What's the best thing you can do for others? What represents my values and ideas? What is my duty? Would I want others to do this to me or for me? How will others that I care about judge your actions? Have you done something wrong for the greater good? Will they take that into consideration? Then you have to ask yourself some things like, when would you do it? I'd never do it. I would only do it if absolutely necessary to prevent somebody else from suffering or dying, to defend the life of somebody that's important to me. What if that person that's important to you basically stirred the conflict that caused somebody else to want to struggle with them? What if they, quote, had it coming? How would you take sides then? What would you do? How would you justify that? Only if necessary to remain free to defend your property. Are you willing to take somebody else's life to defend your property? Or are you only willing to take somebody else's life to defend the lives of those that are part of your group or your loved ones? Then that extension goes, well, how much of defending their life? If somebody's taking your food, that is basically your life. Back in the Old West, you got life in prison, or you got 20 years in jail for killing somebody. But if you stole their horse, that was a hanging offense. And the reason is because without a horse in the Western desert, you would starve to death, and that was not a very good, and dehydrate and everything else out in the sun. So you would bake. So that was an inglorious death. So because you caused the person to suffer in order to die by stealing their horse, you died. But if you just killed them outright, then that was only 20 years in jail. So that's some of the thought processes that they had to go through. How will you do that? XNYC, hello, good evening, welcome, good to see you. If you know that you would be willing to put your own life on the line, have you established when you would when you would take a life or put the life of others at risk? If you're not willing to risk your own, are you willing to risk others? That's a tough decision. When would that happen? Okay, so the last thing in this paragraph, in this chapter, is we may look at our moral code as a compass that directs us towards the right actions, but ethics is the roadmap that guides our route. Ethical choices must be free of fear, anger, hate, pride, and other negative emotions. Flexibility and adaptability are key concepts in survival psychology. Rigid moral codes that are valuable assets during normal times may conflict with survival imperatives under emergency conditions. The lines between right and wrong are blurred in the heat of survival and conflict. And so that's basically those two chapters. That's one of those things that's going to be extremely difficult, that we've got to kind of start doing some mental exercises. There's a fantastic deck of cards that I want to strongly recommend that you purchase. And, it's got 52 questions. The name of the deck is called Conflicted, CONFLICTED. There are probably about 4 different sets of conflicted cards out there now, but each one gives you a scenario. For example, one of the ones, I do it on, I keep forgetting his name. Gosh. He's an ex-special forces guy. He has Muhammad from Pakistan. He has other special forces guys and CIA guys on. It's every day, a 2-hour show. Gosh, what is his name? Kaylin, I know you know who I'm talking about. You helped me with it last time. Chris Heaven, Chris. Anyhow, but he does Conflicted on his channel quite often. No, it's not Sean Ryan. Sean Ryan has some fantastic interviews, however. I really, really like him. But it's another guy. Wait 1 second. Let me look it up. YouTube. No, it's not going to work because I don't know his name and I don't know his channel name. Chris Heaven. There we go. Let's see what that does. Nope, that's a rapper. Okay, I owe you guys a Survival Dispatch. Thank you, Scott. Survival Dispatch. He always does Conflicted on there. And the last one he did that I remember was, and Scott, thank you for putting that on there, the link to Conflicted the game. get those cards, work your way through them. I need to get them myself. No, not Corpus Corner. Chris Heaven is Survival Dispatch. Uh, Great show. Great. Absolutely fantastic. One of the best ones out there. He and Sean Ryan are two of the best out there, in my opinion. And who is it? With the new guy, what's his name? Freedom Firefighter. Yes, you're absolutely right. You're put into these predicaments on an hour by hour, minute by minute basis because of the work that you do. Absolutely correct. And thank you for what you do and making those tough decisions. You know, and I'm reading a book right now on, you know, and it's just a question of who survives different events. You know, the plane on the Hudson, the wreck at on one of the airports, and you know, then it talks about the guy who was head of security and emergency services for one of the brokerage firms in Tower 2. And he even forced VPs off the phone to do his practice drills. And because of the drills he did and because of the way he did things in NYC or in Tower 2, all but 7 of his like 900 employees survived 9/11 because they were trained how to do it and they practice it. But he did not. He and his team all perished because they were going back to make sure that everybody else had made it out. So, you know, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you're looking at is what are your obligations to yourself and to your family? One of the things that we do in the military is we line up by rank out in the field, especially if you aren't getting what we call B rations very frequently. So an A ration is when you eat in a mess hall. It's cooked in the mess hall in the dining facility. You eat it there. Okay, so you're eating it fresh cooked from the cook's serving line. A B ration is they have these big containers that they put warm food in or cold food in, and then they take those out to the field and serve those to you in a line out in the food, out in the field, and you use your mess kit. But it's going to be either hot or cold, you know, like fruit salad and salads and things like that are going to be cold, but your Salisbury steak and gravy and mashed potatoes and peas are all going to be kind of hot. So we call that Mermite cans. When they put those into the Mermite cans and then they carry the Mermite cans out to your unit and then you eat that out in the field, that's a B ration, okay? Then a C ration is anytime it's a prepackaged meal that you open up and cook and eat yourself. So that's going to be like MREs, or back in the Vietnam era, we had what we call Meal Combat Individual, MCIs. Kaylin does reviews of MREs every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Central Time. So if you want to see what it is, you can go to her, watch her. And Kaylin, put your link up there so people can watch your MRE reviews. But anyhow, in the Army, when we line up for B rations, okay, that's when they deliver the food out to the field. And then you never know whether they have enough food or not. We line up by rank. The lowest ranking person eats first. The highest ranking person eats last. My duty as an officer is to ensure that all of my enlisted men eat and get fed before I do. So that's just one of those ethical things that we do in that kind of a situation where we make sure that others are taken care of before us. So we sacrifice for them. And that's one of those things that you need to do for yourself as well. Shenanigans, hello, welcome, good to see you. Oh, Holly, I sure hope that things go well for him. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Freedom Firefighter, I was just looking at doorstops. And so I was also looking at firefighting tools. And they have this one tool that basically pry bar, special firefighting pry bar to open doors, you know, in case you get a call to somebody's house and somebody's down and you need to get in, the door's locked. But they have these special pry bars to get indoors with a wedge that you put in there, and $18 for the set. And I was thinking about ordering one. I wasn't sure if I'd get in trouble for having it or not before it's needed, but for scrounging and scavenging in a post-apocalyptic world, that may come in handy. Okay, so that's one of the things you got. Okay, so Scott has put in Kay Lynn's channel there, I believe, so you can see how she does her MRE reviews. Let me see what else we have here. Okay, so he recommends that I get one. Great, thank you. I will do that. Okay, so that's pretty much what we've got for tonight. Don't forget, we'll be back Thursday night, and we're going to be doing, that's a terrible use of a gerund. We will do a review of Kurt Schlichter's book, The Attack. So this is a compilation of Scott Mann, Kurt Schlichter, Sarah Adams, and how they believe, along with Mohammed, I forget his name, he's a Pakistani intelligence officer who is anti-Muslim Brotherhood, anti-Muslim terrorist type of a guy. But they all kind of got together and said, this is how we envision it going down. We're not going to do a chapter by chapter because I would like to just go over the overall generic topic of how they see it going down and how we can kind of prepare for that in the very near future. Originally, they had thought that it was going to happen during the month of October, but October is pretty much come and gone, and so I think that, I don't like to predict things on a timeline because every time I do, I'm wrong. So, there's, I'm just saying be prepared. That's why we have this channel. We just want you to start preparing and make sure that you've got things in order. Make sure that you're studying what you need to study. There's a guy, Shoku Jinsoku, on long-term preparing for long-term, preparedness for the long-term on Facebook. He is a survivor of the fall of the Eastern Bloc, right after the fall of the Berlin Wall and communism and everything in Eastern society. He has put out some really good things on that Facebook channel that I just, I am in awe of some of the things that he recommends, that he talks about, and that how he survived. And so he's doing it with a been there, done that type of a thing rather than the theoretical. So I want to strongly encourage you, find people like Jin Shoku Shin, find people like Venezuela Prepper, find people like Manny Ferfalagire, who survived the financial downfall of Argentina. Find people like Scott Begovich, not Scott, but Selko Begovich, and his year in HELL, which was the Bosnian Serbian conflict, and he talks about barter and the reality of barter and how difficult it is, and he talks about how people were sniped at while they were going to and from barter transactions, and I mean, so it kind of bust a lot of those bubbles of these theorists about how great barter is going to be and get yourself all these barter items and everything else. And he talks about that, the value of different barter items. And he talks about how simple things are more important. Spend your time getting stuff that you need now instead of things you want to trade for the stuff that you didn't get now. So, all kinds of things like that. So let me catch up with the chat, and then we'll close this one down for the evening. How's that? So Freedom Firefighters talking about, I think, a lot of different things. Oh, I don't know if I told you or not. I had a meeting with the Department of Emergency Management. Gosh, when was that? A week ago, week and a half ago. I think I put it in one of my other videos. But we are getting a CERT unit established here for the county. Because I'm already CERT trained, I'm going to be part of that training for that CERT unit as we get established here. We also are going to have a GMRS repeater put up throughout the county. So we're going to be using GMRS as a repeater for all of our citizens so that they can have access to emergency communications in a post-apocalyptic field if necessary. Those will be solar powered, by the way. So there's all kinds of good things that are going on in my involvement with ARES, in my involvement with CERT, in my involvement with the community emergency services. And I told them one of the first things I want done is let's advertise the living daylights out of it. The absolute best class that I have ever taken on anything in my life was the 4-hour Stop the Bleed class. So if you ever see a class called Stop the Bleed, take it. It is, in my opinion, the one class you absolutely, even more so than CPR or applying a tourniquet, okay? You'll learn how to apply a tourniquet in Stop the Bleed, but that's secondary. I just want you to know that those things are out there for you. Okay, let me see. I think that's pretty much it. I think we can get out of here early this evening. How's that? And then we will see you Thursday evening. Friday afternoon, I'm leading the after action review. I was head of our disaster services for St. Vincent de Paul. And so I was in charge of the flood response. And so I'm getting all the people who worked with me during that flood response. And we're having a 2-hour after action review, basically saying, what do we do wrong? What do we do right? What do we need to do in the future, and what do we need to stop doing because it was a waste of time? How do we spin our wheels? How can we stop spinning our wheels? How can we do better things? We've got to remember the number one thing is to help the victims. And all too often, we were replicating what others had already created because of lack of communication. We were creating processes that became too cumbersome. We were putting restrictions on that did not serve the disaster people. There are all kinds of things we did. So I'll probably take a bashing, but we're going to find out what did we do wrong, what did we do right, how can we fix it so that if there's another disaster like a flood here in our county ever again, the July 4th flood, we know how to handle it and we can take good care of our people. So the book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, XNYC. I'm sorry. Oh, look, Cloud Ortega. Good evening. Welcome. Good to see you as well. Freedom Firefighter, thank you for being here. I hope you will join us on a regular basis. Thursday night is our fiction book club. That's once a month. That's the last Thursday of the month. And every Monday night at 8 o'clock, we do nonfiction book club. And then on Saturdays, I usually do a Pepper Hall, things that I've acquired that week. I was trying to put out at least once a week a short. And so right now, somebody made an outstanding suggestion, said, Lee, do a short on what you need to prevent and treat flu because it's flu season. And during SHTF, we're not going to have a whole bunch of other stuff. We're going to have to take care of ourselves. So what do you recommend we do? So I've got all that prepared. Helen's helped me locate all the stuff we have here in the house so we can put it together and do a flu short. So these are the things you need to take into consideration to prepare for and treat a case of flu or influenza in your house during SHTF, or even before that. Okay, so remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Please continue to be kind, polite, and respectful to each other because togetherness is what's going to see us through. Take care, everybody. I will see you Thursday evening. Have a wonderful week and please stay safe. Bye-bye.